I'm good.
You have a seventh-year quarterback. What's the advantages of that?
AARP, Social Security potentially, before it runs out. A lot of experience. He's been really good from day one, but even more that he's settled in over the last few months, more comfortable. You know, I've always said, in my opinion, there's not really any substitute for experience and maturity. You know, we had a lot of success with Whedon. He was 28-ish, 29, somewhere in that area, same thing. So these guys bring a lot to the table from an experience standpoint.
How much do you think he can improve year 1 to year 2 in your system?
Well, he should just do reps. Our systems don't really change much, so the more we do something, the better we get at it. Familiarity will be good. We've got quite a few wide receivers coming back, so he'll have a little feel for working with those guys. So we should see improvement.
He got a little body by glass, too. I mean, he lost a little and reshaped his body. So
Came in a little soft when he showed up here, but he's worked hard and gotten better. He's thinned up. I think he's lost 6-8 pounds, something like that. Looks good. Hairline's fading back a little bit, but Coach Glass done a good job with him.
you got a bunch of guys that are old. This has got to be the oldest team you've ever had. You coach different when you got this many veterans?
So last spring we had 28 new players. This spring it's around 12-ish, somewhere in that area, so less than half. More retention from the team in general. We have 7th-year guys, 6th-year guys, 5th-year guys. So it's considerably different in an installation standpoint. We've got a few players that we'll have to bring along slower that are new, but the majority of them can move along pretty quick this spring.
Who are some of the early enrollees who come in as these first
I didn't hear that.
Who are some of the early enrollees and mid-year guys that have kind of impressed you at these first months?
Well, they've all done well. We had a 9-week session in the off season, and they've done really well. And I mean that we didn't have anybody that was lagging behind. I will say that Ford, the young man from Stillwater High, has been very impressive. He came in really good physical condition, and he's got good size, good presence. The off season didn't seem to scare him, nor did it really scare any of them. The transfers and the young players that come in now all have personal trainers. They're much further along than it used to be.
You did get a chance to talk about Smith on signing day since he was in the second team. What did you
Well,
like
I can't hear
about
because of the music.
You did get a chance to talk about Smith on signing day. What did you like about him?
I mean, just a lot of things. You know, versatile, can do different things. You know, moves well, mature, is going to have good size. You know, I mean, we're a ways away, but people like the tool set and what the potential we bring.
In this day and age, is it surprising how many guys you were able to bring back this year, just with all the portal movement and
Yeah,
everything
it's different now than it ever has been. For the most part, you're rebuilding the team every year, and then sometimes maybe even every semester. We were fortunate; guys wanted to come back. I felt like that we would have quite a few of them, but it's not really something that we pursue. They have to make that decision on their own, and they made that decision. And prior to us starting in January, 90% of them had committed to coming back through some sort of social media.
Is that a group? Do you think that's something special about this group that they wanted to come back together?
It's hard to tell nowadays. Rhyme or reason for why things, young men come back or stay. I will say that traditionally the group of offensive linemen, those guys kind of do things together. And we have a large number of those guys that are 6th and 7th year guys, and they decided they all wanted to come back and be together, and then I think some of them followed. I think there can be a domino effect at the end of December and at the end of spring portal based on whether it goes for you or against you.
Numbers-wise, defense is obviously a place you'd like to improve. You saw this kind of go with Jim, the progression. So you're in your 2nd year with Brian, and the only staff change you made was at defensive line, and that seems to be, just talking to the guys, something they're excited about with Coach Randolph. Talk about the defense and progression.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of discussions and meetings and conversations about defensive philosophy, and we'll be able to play 3 down, and there's times we'll play 4 down, and just different things that I feel like that we need to do to be successful in trying to create confusion for quarterbacks, and very similar to the conversations that we had with Coach Knowles. And we get in a room and try to decide what's best for Oklahoma State based on the personnel we have. There's a lot of ways to be successful, scheme and concept-wise. I think coaching is finding taking a group, whatever the group we have, and finding a way to be successful with those guys, no matter what it is. And that's the conversations we've had. And I'm really excited about Coach Randolph and what he's bringing to the table, a lot of experience. And when I went out searching and listening and having conversations with coaches across the country, his name would come up in most of those conversations with coaches all over the country. And so we were fortunate that he was available and we could get him here, me and his wife, on our staff.
Mike, how much of an improvement are you expecting from year 1 to year 2 under Nardo?
Well, it's just how I was saying, we're going to improve there. He will improve in his concept and his play calling and his coaching ability. He's still very young, and so he will improve. He's got great work ethic, and he's willing to listen. And our team, we have a number of guys coming back, which makes a difference. We should be able to move along a little quicker than what we did last spring.
No, it changes a little bit with the teams coming in, but just knowledge of the league will help Brian Nardo on it.
So yes, the consistency of that. We've got new guys coming in and a couple going out, so there is some differences there. But there's some familiarity with those schools. Obviously, we played one of them,
Right.
And so all of that works. Should work to his favor, but we need to get effective and become efficient at who we are with the talent that we have. That'll give us the best chance to have success.
Mike, how do you balance with so many returning guys? I mean, Ollie Gordon knows where, he knows the plays. You don't have to put him through a lot. I'm sure your offensive line was the same. Brendan Presley, guys on defense, the same. How do you balance making sure you're still refining with those guys to get better heading into next season, but not really overstress guys that have a good understanding of what you're doing?
That's the challenge. It's almost like an NFL camp where you have a veteran guy that's been in the league 8 or 10 years, and you have a really good idea of how he's going to play in September. So he's got to be refreshed mentally, in our opinion, and then physically in good condition. But then there has to be enough physical contact because it is a physical game. So you have to tie all those things in together, and we've made considerable adjustments over the last 3 or 4 years in things that we do. When we started years ago, but even in the last 3 or 4, we've changed considerably. Like Brendan Presley doesn't need a lot of reps this spring. We have a pretty good idea of what he's going to do. So he can get a little bit of work. He can teach and coach and watch and let him refresh his body. Joe Mikulski, Cole Birmingham, Colin Oliver doesn't need a lot of practice. So there's just a number of guys that will get some work, but not as much as in the past.
What then, as you think about that, sort of having a different, older roster than years past, how do you sort of measure success, or what you hope to get to the end of spring and have accomplished?
Well, I sit up there and watch practice, and I don't have to call plays, don't have to draw them up, don't have to coach a specific position, so I can watch the overall production of the team and the competitive level between the offense and defense. And then when I study the video with the offensive and defensive staff at the same time, we spend a couple hours in there on our off days, and I can really watch in detail some of the young players develop. And then we should see the older players continue on and just improve and minimize missed assignments.
What do you want to see from all of this spring? Obviously, last year having the big season he had, what do you want to see in these next games?
Well, all he needs to practice harder than he did last year. He practiced good last year, but he has to practice better. He's not a secret anymore. He needs to stay humble and work hard. He's been very good at that at this point. We're in a challenging time now. You take Ollie, who's 20 years old maybe, and guys that make a lot of money, and then you tell them to stay level-headed. Not the easiest thing to do with a 20-year-old. So the challenge with him, in my opinion, is to practice as hard as he did last year, be humble, understand that the teams that we play next year don't care what he accomplished last year, and he's not a secret anymore. So he has to continue to raise the ball.
At defensive end, you lose Latu, you lose Goodlow. Who are some guys that need to step up and you expect to compete for reps?
Young guys Sean, Jaleel, guys like that need to come in the edge. We took a portal transfer out of Gannon. I'm sure you guys are aware of him. Those guys will get a lot of work. Some of the veteran guys that have played out there some, Walter Sheets played out there some. Colin can walk up and play out there some. We'll get those guys quality work, but really the young guys in the program, we want to throw them in the fire and let them get a lot of work in the spring.
And then same thing you mentioned with Brendan, probably doesn't need a ton of practice. You got Dejon, you got Rashad. Who are some of those guys behind them that need to step up?
All the guys that you've got on your list, those are all freshmen. Shriveling will get a lot of work this spring, but we're not going to put a lot of pressure on his hand. He'll get all the mental work and do all the legs and routes and stuff, and we're going to let him set a little bit longer with his wrist. And then, as I mentioned, Presley doesn't need a lot of work. At this time last year, Owens was a third-team guy. Now he's a guy that returned and got, 70 catches or something. So he'll get a little bit of work, not a lot. And then all the young guys, Tyke and Hurd and all those guys, they're going to get all the work in the spring.
He's been here a year, and I know he was a good practice player last year. His mom's a heck of a cook. I'm a big fan. Bryce Drummond.
He had a good year last year, getting acclimated to us. Had a good off season. The guy likes the weight room. Smart, tough, physical. He's an old school guy. Hard-nosed, tough guy. We have a place for guys like that on this team. They can rotate in and help us in certain situations offensively, and they can play on special teams. And they bring a lot of grit to your team, a lot of glue for your team. Guys like him are important on football.
You've been invited to dinner?
Have not made it there. I have gone to a couple of her restaurants up there, and it's worth the trip, but have not been out to dinner yet.
Have you seen much improvement from Zane when he got here a year ago to now in the last year? His improvement last year?
So, we didn't really see Zane last year. He was on the scout team, and he practiced with our young guys at the end of practice every day. They got 10 reps. Much different than the setting he'll be in now. And so this will be a time for us to evaluate and watch him grow. A lot of reps for him and Rangel to get out there, and we'll work those guys and we'll rotate them all through, and we'll see who comes out of spring and earns the job.
Mike, you've got a really stable staff. Now you got 18 returning starters. That combination is rare these days. How much of an advantage is that, or can you not know until you get into the game?
It's an advantage. Returning players is unusual now, and then to have a staff for a long time, we don't have to have them. They don't have to listen to me in meetings say a lot. They all know what to do. And I have shared with the team and the staff that we have a lot of maturity on this team, a lot of returning players. We have experience. We have good football players, coaches that have been around a while. You guys need to do a good job of putting them in position to have success, and they need to play hard and be able to win. And I'm just going to not screw it up. I'm just going to stay back, let them do their jobs, coach enthusiasm and coach effort, and let the players have fun.
We've seen some schools over the years do well with this model, coaching stability. Is that a good plan of action, you think, by schools these days?
I think it is. Utah is a good illustration of that. I don't know those guys very well. I have a lot of respect for them, but they've been around forever. We get in recruiting battles with them. We battle for the same players at times. And there's so many moving parts now. You can remember years ago when you were covering college football, there'd be a staff of 15 guys. You had like 8 or 9 coaches, 2 GAs, and a director of ops, and maybe one other guy. With recruiting staffs, strength staffs, all the quality controls, analysts, all the different coaches we have now, we're up around 92 people from the personnel standpoint, comparable to the SEC that are between 140 and 160. And that gives you an idea of how many moving parts there are. So what I'm saying is, if you can keep a group of people in one place for a number of years and they all learn the system and you've gotten decent at the system, it gives you a better chance to improve better, in my opinion.
One change on the full assistance was your defensive line. Why make the change? And
defensive line coach? We just needed a change there, and I've said this a lot. I don't know what the number is, but in my 20th year now as a head coach, I haven't had to change jobs or coaches very much. I feel like I'm responsible for coaching the guys that I hired here, and then they're responsible for coaching the players. And every once in a while, it doesn't mean that there's a coach that's not good enough to coach, or it doesn't mean that I'm correct. It just means that we need a change. And for a variety of reasons, but Greg Richmond is a good football coach and he's a great human being. And we needed a change for a couple of reasons. It's one of the most difficult things to do at my position. But I haven't done it a lot because I feel I'm responsible for them. But just we needed a change of pace and some new blood at that position.
You mentioned,
Go ahead.
you mentioned that Colin's a guy that doesn't necessarily have to practice a lot, but being that his second year not going into a new position, are there developments he can still make?
Mm-hmm. And when I say he doesn't need to practice a lot, I probably should clarify the physical side of it. These guys will get a lot, but the ones that have been in the program and had a lot of reps on their bodies over the years, we try to protect them and get them as much physical work. And then wideouts and corners, they don't need to run all day in practice because they've been doing it for 5 years. So, but he'll practice and do all the mental stuff. And when we go FUD, when we don't tackle to the ground, they'll get all of that work. What I meant by the other was the physicality of veteran guys, like the offensive lineman's shoulders. You know, those guys, they bang around so much. We just try to protect them some in the spring.
Where can he develop this year, this spring?
In all areas, because he's going to be a hybrid guy. Like I don't know. I don't evaluate yet for the NFL, so I'm just going to guess that some will evaluate him as a stand-up guy, some will evaluate him as an edge guy. And the work that he gets here in both those positions, in my opinion, helps our football team, and that's why we move him around, and also helps him for his career.
Anything else for Coach?